the NFL draft will give you some intake or some outlook or insight rather on what the Eagles could possibly do as far as trades in the draft. And we will talk about the Miami Dolphins and how much of an impact they could have on this year's NFL draft. And we'll talk about the two proposed rules changes that have been proposed, if you will. And we will probably close out with the XFL again and give you some information on their full operational shutdown and how that will play out and what that means for their future. So let's jump right in since we are in Philly. I'm an Eagles fan, and let's talk Eagles right away. Well, as we know, as we mentioned last week when we talked about the Eagles and their draft, the Eagles have currently 8 picks in the draft. They have some ideal picks, which I'll get to once I go through this article and break this stuff down for you. So, just a reminder what the Eagles have in store coming up for this draft. As of right now, if the draft started tomorrow, no trades or anything involves, this is what the Eagles would be looking at as their draft projections. In the first round, they have their own pick, which is number 21. In the second round, they also have their own pick, which is number 53. Moving to the third round, which is a compensatory pick, it's number 103. In the fourth round, and these are the picks that are ideal for the Eagles that could be used as a lot of leverage for the Eagles. It's 3 picks in the fourth round. Number 127, which is their own, and then they have two back-to-back, 145 and 146. Both of those are compensatory picks. Then they have a fifth round from the Michael Bennett trade with the Patriots, and 1/6 round from the Falcons in their Jonathan Cyprian trade. So there you have the Eagles picks. 8 picks for the Eagles in the draft. And like I mentioned, the Miami Dolphins, when we get to that part, have a whopping 14 picks in this year's draft. So Ivan's back watching again. Thanks for tuning in as always. So, okay, the draft is coming up, and we know what's going to happen. There's going to be players selected as usual because it's the draft, and then there will be players traded. There might even be some trades on draft night to be announced. So we will definitely see how all of that plays out. So we talk about the Eagles picks, and I'm just going to go through this real quick, or not real quick, but I'm going to get through this and try to give you the finer points and give you some ideas of what to expect for the Eagles when the Eagles draft. If you come back, yes, Ivan, I hope they do good too. They got a lot of stuff to work with. Like I said, those 3 fourth-round picks are could pose a lot of leverage for them in moving up or down or whatever they decide to do. I personally think they need to try and move up from that first-round pick at 21, move up into the mid-teens or late teens to try and get one of those stud wide receivers because, as we know, this year's draft is pretty stacked with wide receivers. So, if they come out of the first round with one wide receiver, that would be great. Ivan, I'll get you the date of the NBA draft. That's June, but I'll get you the date of that. Don't worry. I'll get you the date for that. So we don't have to worry about that for a little bit because it's in June. So I'll get to you outside of the show and give you that information. They also, like I said, they have the 3 fourth-round picks, but a lot of people are speculating that the Eagles will trade up to get a wide receiver and pretty much stay the same in rounds 2, rounds 3, and then, like we mentioned, here is where it gets a little tricky with those fourth-round picks. They, they could be had. People will offer you picks in the later rounds, the 6th and 7th rounds, to move up to the 4th round to get those picks. And I mean, that's not a bad thing for the Eagles to get more picks in the 5th or 6th round, or maybe even drop back in and get one in the 7th round. So they don't have one in the 7th round. They only go have a 6th round pick. So And those later round picks are like late in the round. Like the third round is 103. The fourth rounders are 127, 145, 146. Um, they could trade back, or trade up in those rounds. The fifth round is 168, and their sixth round is 190. So they could use those three, fourth round picks that they have to either move up or get picks, more picks later, and they could also possibly recoup another fourth round pick. So they could ideally, not ideally, but they could essentially work a deal and trade away two or possibly all of those fourth round picks and still possibly make another trade late in the rounds and get back into the fourth round and get another pick somehow, some way. So, like we said, the ideal picks are those fourth round picks. Those three fourth round picks are the ideal picks for the Eagles right now, which I think will give them a lot of leverage and have them with a lot of wiggle room. Just looking at my ticker, the Chicago Bulls have fired their GM. Um, they had just recently hired a vice president of basketball operations. Now they have fired their GM, and quiet is kept. They were interested in a staff member from the Philadelphia Sixers. So in conclusion, with the Eagles and this little bit and this quick tidbit on their draft possibilities of trades and everything, we go. The Eagles entered the draft with 8 picks. They got several options to move around in both the first and the second rounds, and still come out of the draft with 8 picks. Um, some of those options might be forced upon them by their current depth chart, but if they want, they can still end up with a respectable quality of picks early and a respectable quantity of picks overall. So there you have it. The Eagles have a lot of wiggle room where they could get a lot of picks up early, and then they can get a lot of good potential picks overall in the draft. So I'm going to move into this new thing, and it's the projected rules changes or the proposed rule changes. They've proposed 2 rules changes that will need to be approved by 75% of the league's owners in order to pass. Okay, among the rule change proposed is one to amend Rule 4, Section 3, Article 2, which would prevent teams from manipulating the game clock by committing multiple dead ball fouls while the clock is running. Something that Bill Belichick and Vrabel did during the 2019 season. So they say if this is passed, the NFL owners, it would likely receive the unofficial title as the Bill Belichick rule, which would join the Mel Blount rule and the Jesse James rule as some of the other rules changes that have become synonymous with the particular person. So, yeah, they want to, I guess, smooth the game up or speed the game up. So they want to take away from the teams committing dead ball fouls, to stop the game or to save time on the clock. The second rule change is to amend Rule, Rule 12, Section 2, Article 9, which will, and I quote, expand defensive player protection to a kickoff or punt returner who is in possession of the ball but who has not had time to avoid or ward off the impending contact of an opponent. So this will be yet another change to NFL kickoffs after the league took away running starts and wedge blocking. They also moved the kick from the 30 to the 35. And the Eagles and Dolphins are the teams that are also proposed to have rules changes that will be voted on by the owners. Among these include the Eagles' proposal to offer an alternative to the onside kick that would give the team that is trailing in the game an opportunity to maintain possession of the ball. The team that is trailing would have one opportunity to gain 15 yards from their own 25-yard line in order to receive a new set of downs. So, what do you think about that, folks? So I know you're tuned in, and I'm going to read this again, and then I'll give you how I feel about this. So, pertaining to the Eagles, and this is one of the rules change that has been proposed, where there's going to be a change to an onside kick. So basically, in opposition or as opposed to an onside kick, the team that is trailing will get one opportunity. Okay, we'll get one opportunity to gain 15 yards to maintain the ball, get a new set of downs to continue on with the game. And they would get that from their 25-yard line. And like I said, they would have one opportunity to get 15 yards to continue their drive, continue to maintain possession. Philadelphia has also proposed a rule change to overtime, asking the NFL to add 5 minutes to the currently existing 10-minute overtime session to help minimize the impact of the overtime coin toss. Now, that second one, I'm not too sure about that. You want to add basically a whole entire quarter to the overtime period. And you say it's going to help minimize the impact of the overtime coin toss. I can see how that could be part of the plan, because ideally, if you're in a tie, like if you have to be in overtime, you're in a tie, you win the coin toss, you want to take your chances right out the gate. You want to take the ball and try and go down and score. And as we know, if you go down and you score a field goal, the other team gets opportunity to come back and win, tie it again, and score a field goal or score a touchdown. If you score a touchdown on that first possession, then the game is over, you win. I kind of like that a little bit, but this here, I don't know if the NFL is going to actually go into adding that extra 10 minutes and that extra 5 minutes, considering they've already added a week to the season. An extra game to the season, so I'm not sure how that one would play out. Going back to the prior one, I like that idea of giving the team the ball at their 25 and giving them one opportunity to make the 15 yards. I think that is a great challenge to both the teams. In that position, you're trying to get back into the game, or you're trying to get to win the game with the possible onside kick, which usually doesn't bode well for the kicking team, because now you don't get the onside kick, you don't recover. Now you've given the winning team, or the team that's ahead, or the team that had momentum, you're giving them a short field as opposed to kicking the ball off and making them go, 80, 75, 80 yards to score. So I think that would be great. Even though, it would still give the other team a shortened field, but it would make them work for it. It would pose a challenge. I think that would make that particular situation, or it would make games more competitive, because now I got one opportunity to get 15 yards on the offensive side of the ball, and on the defensive side of the ball, I got one chance to stop them, or we might be in for a long drive that could possibly hurt us and help us, make us lose the game or whatever. So I think that rule change is one that I could get behind, because I feel like, that's going to make the game more competitive down the stretch. And again, like I said, you got that one opportunity. You still, even with the onside kick, you got one opportunity, but your probability increases with the physical play, as opposed to just the kickoff and trying to get the ball, because there's so much involved in the onside kick. Ball has to go 10 yards before the kicking team can touch it, yada, yada, yada. This way we line up and we just go at it. If we get these 15 yards, we play on. If we don't, then we got to come out and play defense and stop the other team. So I think that would spark some competitive nature. I think that would make the latter part of games a lot more interesting. So it's not as expected, where you would say, oh, all right, they just scored. Now they're within 3. It's a minute and a half, a minute 45 left. Well, we know it's an onside kick coming. On the other side of that same situation, they just scored, or they're about to score, or they haven't scored, whatever. It's not the same situation, but on the other side, you get into that position. Now you get the ball at the 25. You got one shot to get 15 yards. Teams have plays that can get you 15 yards. It's up to the defense to stop it. So I think that's a good idea, and we will definitely see how that plays out. I think that would get voted in by the owners. If I was an owner, I would vote in favor of that one. Again, the second one for the Eagles, adding an extra 5 minutes to the overtime period, making it another full quarter. Don't know about that. Like I said, with all the changes that have been put in place now, with the extended season, extended week in the season and the extended game in the season, that might be a little tough for the owners to buck up and pass. So we move on to the Miami Dolphins, and we talk about this NFL draft. Like we opened up with the Eagles in the draft, and we had some Eagles notes in those rules changes. But I wanted to get you those rules changes just so you go. I may even go back and research the article and share it in the group later today if I get to it or not. But the Miami Dolphins, like I mentioned, are looking at 14 picks. Okay, this is a league leading 14 selections in the NFL draft upcoming April 23rd through the 25th. So, what will they do with those picks? Who knows? Miami was, if you will, one of the bottom feeders in the past season. So they when you go into a draft and you say like the Eagles, they need wide receivers, they need this, they need that. You can put the Miami Dolphins in that group where they need anything, everything. So whatever the best player is at that position that they have, um, they need to take them. But I'm sure there will be some phone calls and other things going on around the time as it gets closer to this NFL draft because they have three first rounders, number 5, number 18, number 26 overall. People remember 18, and I said what I said about the Eagles. They may want to move up mid to late teens. They may get a call from the Eagles to get one of those picks, try and make a trade, or some other teams to try and make a trade to move up in that first round. Okay, they have 2 second rounders, number 39 and number 56. 2 picks that are also enticing to other teams looking to move up to to assure themselves of getting a player that they have on their board. Okay, now that was only 5 of their picks. Okay, I'll have to check into the actual rest of the numbers, the picks. But again, they need everything. Alexis, I'm glad you're tuned in. Thanks for tuning in, as a matter of fact. But the Miami Dolphins need a lot. Like I mentioned, you said the Eagles need specific points on that roster where the Eagles need help. And they can possibly successfully fill those holes in this year's draft. Miami Dolphins, again, need everything. They just need help all the way across the board. And with those 14 picks, like I said, that they could do a lot of things with the draft. They could spearhead some trades. They're definitely going to be called about some trades, I'm sure. Because like I said, they've got in the first 2 rounds, and I've only mentioned the first 2 rounds of picks. And these are like ideal picks that people will want. Again, numbers 5, 18, and 26 in the first round. 3 good picks. Then you move into the second round, like we said. And then there's number 39 and number 56. Also, 2 more good picks. So, again, like I said, I don't know what the other numbers are, what other picks are. But with that, those 5, they have more, plenty more. So they could really, really make a big splash, make a big, big step or a big, big move or a big, big impact. They will have a huge impact on this year's draft, whether they make picks their own, keep most of them, whether they get involved in trades. But they will definitely have a major, major impact on this year's NFL draft. And we're just going to have to watch. Like I said, the draft is April 23rd through the 25th. I'm sure the Eagles will be on the phone as far as players and trades and trade possibilities to move up in the draft. And we'll see how things play out for the Miami Dolphins. Like we said, who pretty much could own the 2020 NFL draft. So, as I mentioned earlier um, in the show and my early part in my intro, I mentioned about, we know all of the shutdowns in the major sports. The XFL was the last team to suspend or cancel games in their season. They ultimately, a week later, suspended all XFL, all business um, options, all business actions, all business activity, if you will. Okay, all operations are now done. The XFL in a statement said, and I quote, pursuant to federal and state law, if applicable, please take notice of the following. Number one, all operations of Alpha Entertainment LLC, including your work location, are being discontinued effective April 10th, 2020. Number two, as a result of the discontinuance of operation, the company is permanently laying you off effective immediately. We are taking this action because of COVID-19 related business circumstances that were not reasonably foreseeable. It is not a reflection of your job performance, end quote. So, yeah, I don't know. Just to sidetrack, I'm reading my feed, looking at my feed here. Champ, Ivan Robinson, I'm not too sure. If I'm the Sixers GM, Elton Brand, I would be very, very careful with the Devin Booker deal. He would be a great addition, I'm sure, but it depends on what is being asked for in return from Phoenix. So that I would have to be very, very cautious and very careful in the Devin Booker deal. Although it would be a great addition, like I said, don't get me wrong, Ivan, it would be a great addition, but the price tag would have to be something reasonable, and would also have to be contingent on me not having to give up a major cornerstone or a major piece in my own organization and where I've been from this past season, which ended moving into next season. I can't just go willy-nilly and do a deal. I would have to seriously consider it and go over everything with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that it's the right decision for me as a GM or as a Sixers in that organization. So, while this doesn't mean that the XFL is officially like dead in the water, it's still very, very uncertain as to if they will come back or not. But I do, agree with a lot of the statements in this article. That the XFL was one of the leagues who tried to combat or tried to challenge the NFL and have football in the spring. So, they had a lot of good things going for them, which is why I think their season is their resumption as an organization or as a league is still uncertain. They embraced their audience in the stadium at games and a lot of social media. It felt more like a college game or a fun Pro Bowl as far as the action and how they prepared those games for you with the mics on, and you could hear the coaches call out plays. You can hear the players talking to each other and things of that nature. It really engaged you into the game. So, a year ago, there was the Alliance of American Football, which also had an 8-team league with 10-week season, which ceased operation only into 8 weeks into the season. The XFL got 10, so they got 2 more weeks. The XFL, the AAF declared bankruptcy, and now we are totally unclear of why the XFL did what they did. We also know, as of note, it is the second attempt by Vince McMahon to create a viable spring alternative to the NFL. His first, back in 1999, the XFL played only one season and ended in 2001. The XFL can point to building its momentum in the fact that it was ultimately derailed not by the quality of its product, but again by circumstances or means that were out of our control. The XFL, remember, it wasn't perfect. It was an upstart league, but they did, however, deserve a bigger opportunity to shine and become successful. So there you have it, folks. Another sports rap in the books, and I thank everyone that tuned in. Um, I appreciate the continued support through the live feeds, through just the regular social media, through the things that I post, and I totally appreciate it. And I'm here for you as long as I can be here. And anytime I get information, as you know, I will definitely get that information to you. So, in closing, I want to say it's going to be 70 degrees today, but it's going to be rainy and sloppy and nasty pretty much the entire day. So already you don't have to, you can't, you're not supposed to be out. So if you don't have to go out, today is a perfect day to completely stay in the house. I usually say if you want some air, get out on your porch or step out into your backyard by yourself, get you some air. I don't think the weather's going to hold up for you too much today. So you might want to stay in. You can go back and later on you can replay this video and see the good information that I brought you as always on Sports Rap on Heat 100 Radio. So lastly, I have been putting out on my own, on my social media feed, been giving you PSAs as I've been calling them and updating you on my health situation, my family, which we are still doing good. Uh, Last thing before we become a trainer, you be safe in there. Yeah, I saw that. I hope that can work for him, Ivan. I guess got a text from Ivan Robinson who's reminded me that Floyd is now going to become a trainer. I kind of think it's going to be tough for him, and this is just my thoughts, because I kind of think of him as in that mode of the way I thought about Kobe before Kobe started coaching. I felt like he was too intense, too much of a perfectionist, too much competitive to be a coach. So I don't know. But I mean, it's a great idea. It's a great thought, and it may work for him. So we'll see what happens with that. I will definitely keep my ears to that situation and see what goes on with that. So yeah, Coach Ivan, you stay safe too as well, brother. So lastly, like I said, I want to give you this. Like I said, I've been doing PSAs and letting people know that you need to adhere to what's being told to you. This is the only way that we will get through this. And I know some people are taking this situation for granted, taking it lightly. Um, but we all have to come together at some point to get through this. A lot of people are complaining about this pandemic or this quarantine getting extended. But people, you have to do what you're told. If you don't, then it's just going to spark the government to, um, it's going to spark the government to extend and make this thing longer and drawn out more than what you would like to have it be or expect it to be. So, folks, just do what you're told to do. Stay in the house. If you don't need to come out, don't come out. Um, the sooner we all adhere to what's being told, the sooner this thing will be over and we can get back outside and get back to our regular nature. So, with that being said, I also want to mention that this is happening. Like you've seen all the videos of people outside playing basketball, gathering around water ice stands and ice cream stands, and just outside. Period. It was also hit the professional level, and I'm telling you, folks, it's both sides of the fence, all the way up and down the ladder. People are doing what they're supposed to do. People are doing what they want to do. In particular, it's been reported Dak Prescott held a party for one of his childhood friends or one of his college friends or longtime friends, upwards of up to 30 people at his home, not protecting themselves. Of course, if there was 30 people in there, it's no way that they were practicing social distancing. I'm not sure if they were wearing masks, but it was a party, so I'm going on a limb and saying that they were not. So, Dak, come on. You are what a lot of people consider a role model, a professional athlete. you should take the right angle with this and do what you're told. You even had a teammate there. So Zeke, I'm talking to both of you guys. Not a Cowboys fan, just in general. I'm just concerned with what's going on in our world today, right now. And again, people, we got to adhere to it, because if you don't know. Like I said, perfect example of this party: 30 people, professional athletes, 2 professional athletes that we know of that were there. The other people, they're supposed to be quarantined. You don't know what these people were doing outside, or you don't know. Like I said, I've been places and I've seen people go in bathrooms and not wash their hands in a lot of different places. I can give you sporting events, at work, other places as well. So people aren't always health conscious. People sometimes just do what they want to do and don't care. But why should you jeopardize your health because someone else wants to be ignorant and not care about their own health? That being said, stay safe on purpose. Open the windows today. You probably can't get outside to get much air because it's going to be rainy and sloppy all day. Thank you, Ivan, for your comments. As I said, you're a smart guy, and like you all champions become great coaches. I agree with that, but I think, again, like I said about Kobe, Kobe ended up being a great coach because of his competitive nature, and his being a student of the game, and his harshness and everything like that, and wanting to be a perfectionist. I look at Floyd as in the same realm in his respective sport. So I think it'll be tough from the beginning, but I think he will gradually grow into it and ultimately be a great trainer. Thank you, Ivan Ramos, and thank you to everybody that tuned in. You have been listening to Sports Rap, Heat 100 Radio. It's your boy D, signing out. You know where to find me, as always, at SportsRap_D on Instagram and Twitter. On Facebook, the group page, Sports Rap Radio Show. On YouTube, Sports Rap TV, there is a video that will be up today. So, Sports Rap TV on YouTube. And finally, Sports Rap Podcast on iHeartRadio and wherever you get your podcasts. It's your boy D, signing out. I will see you all week on social media and next week in studio. Peace. Thank you for tuning in.